Welcome to the course, Critical Thinking Skills in Science. We're on Chapter 5, Man's Origin. This is session number 5. Man was given a choice, life or death. Seems like an easy choice. If you had a choice to live or to die. And, what would I choose? Well, obviously, I would choose life. Who wants to die? But that was the choice given to the original couple in the garden. In Genesis chapter 2, verses 16-17, Yahweh commanded the man, saying, "You may freely eat of every tree of the garden, but you shall not eat of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. For in the day that you eat of it, you will surely die." We're talking about critical thinking skills, and we're now in the context of the Garden of Eden. And God has created man perfect. God has created man to have dominion and to exercise dominion over what he has created. But God says, "But you shall not eat of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil." Knowledge of good and evil. That's what this course is about reliable knowledge. How do we get to reliable knowledge? And yet there is a test given from God to Adam saying, you may eat of every tree that you want, minus the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. For in the day that you eat of it, you will surely die. That has kind of some deeper meaning to it in that somehow knowledge can influence us or take us away, especially the love of knowledge. It can separate us from our communion with God somehow, because knowledge puffs us up. Knowledge can make us arrogant and proud, and being arrogant and proud again separates us from being a servant as created by God to accomplish his will. The temptation, surely you won't die. Okay, God said, in the day that you eat of it, you will surely die. Genesis chapter 3, verse 1. Now the serpent was more subtle than any animal of the field which Yahweh God had made. He said to the woman, "Has God really said, you shall not eat of any tree of the garden?" Interesting, the context. One, we're in the garden. We're looking at the tree now of knowledge of good and evil. And it says, now the serpent was more subtle. Okay, that word in Hebrew, arum, has a connotation, a double meaning to it. One meaning can be knowing, can be clever, can be a lot of good things, but it also has another shade of meaning to that same word, that it can be deceitful. So in other words, it can be a cunning, it can be clever, and it can be deceitful, all within the same word. And those are the descriptions given to the serpent that God had created, that was more cunning, that was more deceitful than any animal of the field which Yahweh had made. And he said to the woman, "Has God really said?" Okay, what does that do? That introduces a skepticism, introduces a doubt. Has God really said? He said that? Are you sure? It's kind of like, well, maybe not, because God didn't say it to her. He said it to him. And she heard it from him. I don't know if she was there and heard it directly from God. Has God really said And she said, well, maybe I'm doubting my sources now. Maybe Adam didn't really mean that. Maybe God had really said something else. You shall not eat of any tree of the garden? No, of course not. That was an over-exaggeration. God had said, you may eat of any tree of the garden, minus that one. Her response, Genesis chapter 3, verses 2 and 3. The woman said to the serpent, oh no, we may eat fruit from the trees of the garden, but not the fruit of the tree which is in the middle of the garden. God has said, you shall not eat of it. You shall not touch it, lest you die. Okay, did God say that? It's kind of like, no. At first, Satan was getting her to doubt, has God really said, you shall not eat of it, you shall surely die? Is that what God said? And then she says, no, he didn't say that, any of the trees. He said just this one tree in the middle. You shall not eat of it, nor touch it. Okay, so she added another parameter to it that God did not say, but which can now introduce a little bit of doubt as to, well, what did God really say? Did he? Well, I don't know. I heard it through Adam. Did Adam say not touch it too? Or did she add that? Where did this come in? And the serpent said to the woman, you won't really die, for God knows that in the day you eat it, your eyes will be opened, and you will be like God, knowing good and evil. We're talking about critical thinking. Critical thinking that leads us to higher levels of knowledge, that separates knowledge from non-knowledge, that separates science from pseudoscience. So this is what's proposed to Eve, is that, no, wait a minute, God surely knows you will not surely die. You're not going to die. But God does know that if you eat of it, you're going to become like him. And it's kind of like, well, who doesn't want to become like God? Who doesn't want to know it all? Who doesn't want to have knowledge that's been hidden from them? Who doesn't want to have something that they shouldn't have, and that it's known to be good? And it's kind of like, and you will be like God, knowing good and evil. Okay, so he's kind of like appealing to the woman's taste for knowledge, to have something, because she knows that God is not them, that God is outside the system. God visits the system. Maybe she's questioning, who is God? Who are we? How do we fit? How does this all fit together? Are we going to become gods like him someday? Or I don't know what the questions were that were going through the mind, but he plants doubt. You won't really die. For God knows that in the day, God knows a lot of things. Yes, he does. But God knows that in the day you eat of it, your eyes will be opened. Okay, we've talked about before in that, can we base reality on empiricism, especially the capacities that man has in his senses to measure reality or to detect reality, when man's senses are inferior to a lot of the senses of animals in the animal kingdom, either to sense of smell or taste or eyesight. So is empiricism a good parameter to put on the boundaries of reality? And we had mentioned a couple Bible verses that people did not see. And Elisha said, Lord, opened his eyes that he might see. And so he opened his eyes, and he saw now another dimension. He saw the chariots of fire surrounding on the mountains. He saw the angels. He saw the protection that was there in the spiritual dimension. And this says, and you will be like God, knowing good and evil. Your eyes will be opened. Your eyes will be opened. I wonder what she didn't see before. I wonder what she didn't see that Satan did see, because he is saying your eyes will open and you'll see like maybe we do or something. There's something else out there that you're missing. You need to have more knowledge, and you need to have knowledge of good and evil. That was a sales point. The choice of death. So Adam and Eve chose death. They had the choice of life. They had a commandment. Don't eat. In the day you eat of it, you will die. You can have anything and everything else. You have dominion over everything else that I've created, but there's just one rule. Don't eat. Don't eat of the tree of knowledge of good and evil. When the woman saw that the tree was good for food, the woman saw the tree was good for food, and that it was a delight to the eyes, and that the tree was desired to make one wise. And she started to doubt. God's keeping something from us. And it's just kind of like reading through this. You see the three main philosophies that are underneath the scientific method, which is empiricism, which is to observe, to see. And so we have the woman saw that the tree was good for food. Then we have rationalism, which is the acquiring of knowledge, of just thinking things through and critically and being able to accumulate more and higher knowledge. Well, and it was good for food, and that the tree was desired to make one wise. Man has always wanted to be wise. He wants to be wiser than maybe the God who created him. I'm not sure, but there's always a pursuit for wisdom. And that's what philosophy, that's where the name comes from. Philo, Sophia, which is philo, which is the love of, and Sophia is wisdom, the love of wisdom. So man has set on his path to find wisdom, and he loves that wisdom. He loves knowledge. And that's what Satan appealed to. Satan appealed to her love, desired to make one wise. So in other words, we have here, empiricism, rationalism, and skepticism all wrapped up in this one temptation by Satan. She took some of the fruit and ate. Then she gave some to her husband with her, and he ate too. He didn't want to be left behind. He didn't want to lose out on the knowledge that his wife was gaining. And so they ate together. She ate first, it appears, and then she took some and gave it to him. Him even knowing the prohibition of his creator, don't eat of it. And he probably was the one, I would say, that had the direct prohibition. And he's the one that passed the prohibition on to Eve. And therefore, Satan approached Eve first and says, Did he really say that? Did God really say that? And so it's kind of like, okay, it's introducing a skepticism, a doubt, and then it turns to empiricism, which is seeing, and then it turns to rationalism to make one wise, and it's kind of like, that's been the trap ever since the beginning, hasn't it? 1 John chapter 2, verses 15 through 17. Don't love the world or the things that are in the world. If anyone loves the world, the Father's love isn't in him. For all that is in the world, the lust of the flesh, the lust of the eyes, and the pride of life, isn't the Father's, but is the world's. The world is passing away with its lusts, but he who does God's will remains forever. John is talking about, okay, be careful. Beware of the lust of the flesh, the lust of the eyes, and the boastful pride of life, which they said knowledge puff us up. Knowledge is the pride of life, wisdom, and just that's what today, is that information is power. Information is pride. He who controls information controls technology, controls the world. So it's always been a pursuit of knowledge. But God had given parameters. Don't go there. Don't go to this knowledge, because I'm just saying, don't do it. They went there and their eyes were opened. Open to what? I'm not sure. Or what did they see previously? But it's like their eyesight was contained in that they didn't see everything that was there. But then their eyes were opened so that then they did see something after that. This is the biblical basis, the Hebrew basis of understanding what happened. Can we now and should we trust man's independent critical thinking skills? Well, it didn't work from the beginning, because Adam and Eve had the perfect set of tools to work with. They were undiminished, they were untarnished, and their independent critical thinking skills got them into trouble, because they were tempted to gain knowledge of something that God had told them, no, that is not something that will benefit you. And so in their pursuit of knowledge and in their pursuit of wanting to be like God and to not have knowledge kept from them, which is kind of the temptation, God is keeping something good from you. You should go beyond the prohibition and see what's out there. And it's kind of like God put the test and Adam and Eve flunked it. But it seems like the test before us, we also are tempted to go after knowledge of good and evil and forsake the source of knowledge, which is our external authority, revealed wisdom, revealed general and special revelation, and we seek it through human reasoning. We seek it through, well, let's just apply critical reasoning. Can we apply critical reasoning without abandoning our source of reliable knowledge, which would be God? Can we do those? Or do we change then our source of reliable knowledge to human reasoning when we employ critical thinking? That's going to be the challenge, is that can we maintain a submissive attitude to the God of all wisdom while we seek knowledge and wisdom, but yet we're called on to employ critical thinking skills, which are those skills then to be employed outside of God? Are we being tempted again to go around and eat of the fruit of which we can't attain through just submitting to that external authority? Questions to think on. This is chapter 5, Man's Origin, session number 5. And we've got nine sessions in total, so we just have 4 more. And thank you for accompanying me, and hope that you're thinking on these things, and you're welcome to communicate with us, thnacademia at gmail.com, or through our webpage at cultureworldviewandorigins.net. Thank you again. We're Tim and Holly, and hope to see you in the next session.